Hey everyone, welcome back. So today we're going to be reviewing Primal Light on the Nintendo Switch. Now this game is a 2D retro action platformer that's aiming at emulating a 16-bit art style. It just released on November 24th of 2022, and its regular sales price is $14.99. The game is published by No Gravity Games, and it has a download size of 224 megabytes. Now the question is, does this game deliver a great platforming experience? Well, that's what we'll find out in today's review. Now just remember, if you are liking the content, hit that like button. Now storyline-wise, the game starts out with you seeing your village being destroyed by a huge floating head in the sky. But in true heroic fashion, you're not going to take that lying down, and you set out to collect the 12 legendary artifacts. Because apparently, with their power, you'll be able to undo the tragedy and save your people, and basically return to your old life. Now storyline-wise, this game is really emulating a true retro style, because other than this initial cutscene, you won't really get anything else till the end of the game. So the developers here were definitely aiming at gameplay and not any type of overarching storyline other than a simple motivation. So for someone looking for a deep and well-rounded storyline, this is definitely not going to be the game for you. However, since the developer was aiming at a retro-styled action platformer, these games are all about the gameplay. So let's jump over. So now if we jump over to that gameplay, you are playing as Krog, an extremely muscular humanoid creature with blue skin and glowing green features in their face. And the basic setup for the gameplay is pretty simple. Make your way through 10 different levels using a combination of your platforming and combat skills, all the while defeating a huge boss at the end of each one of these levels. Now when you begin your journey, you'll start with a very basic set of skills, the ability to jump, to attack, and to roll. The good news, however, and something that I truly appreciated, is as you make your way through the different levels, you'll be acquiring new abilities, such as the ability to do a Mega Man-like slide, a dash ability that can also be used in the air, and finally, even a double jump. As you kill enemies and different destructible items, you'll also be able to collect coins throughout the gameplay. These can be exchanged at different vendors for a limited number of extra lives. Your character also has the ability to regen a limited number of its health points, represented by green bars under your health bar. These get refreshed after each death or at the beginning of each new level. You'll also be able to find different upgrades throughout your playthrough, like more health regens or simply more hit points. These are hidden, however, and optional, but really will help your gameplay if you manage to find them. There are also other types of hidden upgrades that can be found and can actually be equipped at checkpoints. Now you can equip a maximum of 2 of these abilities, and they vary greatly in effect. For example, some will reveal the hit points of enemies, another one will lower the cooldown on your slide ability. Some even increase the difficulty of gameplay. Now before we go any further, I do want to mention that this is a fairly challenging game. And it does offer 3 different levels of difficulty. However, even at its easiest difficulty, it will remain challenging. And although I normally always play games on the medium difficulty for my first playthrough, I would strongly recommend that anyone diving into this game try the easy difficulty for their first playthrough. The reason why is that the biggest difference between these 2 difficulty levels is that on the easy difficulty, if you lose all your lives and you use a continue, it will bring you back to your last checkpoint. However, on medium, it will bring you back all the way to the beginning of the level. And given the overall difficulty of the game here, especially the bosses, it will make for a much less frustrating playthrough for your first time if you start on easy. And other than that slight change and the bosses having slightly less HP, you will be getting the full experience nonetheless. The game also offers an extreme level of replayability, where each time you finish a playthrough, it unlocks a harder version of that same difficulty. I would warn that sometimes during your first playthrough of the game, you will find that some of the deaths feel cheap. Because although most elements that would cause you harm are clearly indicated, there are some that feel purposefully ambiguous. However, as I got used to the level designs, you see that this is a game that really prioritizes strategic approaches to the levels rather than just reactionary ones. There were even moments of this gameplay that reminded me of the experience I had while playing a game like Cyber Shadow, although definitely less polished. But every enemy definitely has a pattern of attack and a way to approach them. Combine this with your positional awareness, and you'll be able to face every challenge the game throws at you. And it really is the key to success. So gameplay-wise, I do think this game will be very satisfying for someone looking for a challenging 2D action platformer. However, on a side note, I do feel that some of those cheap deaths could have been skipped by the developers and rather replaced with more fair-feeling challenges. So now if we talk about the controls of the game. The good news here is that the controls are crisp and responsive with only a couple of slight exceptions, but they really feel like voluntary ones. For example, your roll feels slightly sluggish, but this seems voluntary so that it can't be abused since it does provide a limited amount of iframes. I also reached a point in the gameplay where there was a gameplay element control-wise that just didn't feel natural. At one point in the levels, they will introduce these different rings that your character can hang from. If you make contact with these rings, your character won't actually grab them unless you're holding the up direction. However, there are occasions where you'll be jumping horizontally and having to grab onto one of these after, and this felt like it led to a couple of missed inputs. Also, sometimes the input for jumping off of a ladder did feel less responsive than I would have liked. However, all these little quirks just require a little bit of adaptation. However, it just felt like they didn't need to be there. I've got to say that overall, the control scheme seems to work very well, and the base controls are crisp and responsive, so I enjoyed this game from a controls perspective. Now we get to the graphics and sound. Now, as I previously mentioned, this game is aiming at a 16-bit art style, and for this, I think it truly delivers a beautiful representation. Overall, the basic of the design does make you feel like a game that you could have been playing on your old SNES. And although simple, I really enjoyed the overall character design, and especially his muscle poses that he would take every time he beat a boss. Where I do feel that artistically or visually the game did let me down a bit is that there was quite a bit of asset recycling. Now, assets will always be recycled, but some levels really did feel just like a palette swap. The enemies, on the other hand, however, were all very visually distinct. I would have enjoyed a greater variety of enemy types, but overall, the most important thing is you can all tell them apart and know exactly what tactic to use with each. Lastly, on the visual side, the bosses were a definite highlight, with a design that was truly grotesquely beautiful. Now, if we flip over to the sound side, I would say that it was very satisfactory. It was nothing to write home about, it wasn't a revolutionary soundtrack, but it did add to the experience, and overall, I did enjoy it. Overall, not one that I would be listening to outside of playing the game, but nonetheless, it got the job done. Now for the verdict. And if this is one of the first reviews of mine that you're watching, I always include my review scale down below in the description of the video. And in the case of Primal Light on the Nintendo Switch, I'm going to be giving it a 7.5. Putting it at the high end of a good game. Overall, for someone looking for a challenging retro-like experience, this game is going to deliver a very good experience. However, as I pointed to during the review, what will put some players off is there are some deaths that feel sort of cheap. And its normal $15 price point does place it close to some very stiff competition. However, the huge replayability behind this game with increasing difficulty levels, even among each difficulty, really is a plus. On a side note, currently the game is 40% off on the Nintendo Switch eShop, dropping it to $8.99. And I would say when it drops below that $10 price point, for anyone in the market for this type of gameplay, it becomes a top pickup. So now I turn the question over to you. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of the review or the game if you've tried it, or simply if you're going to be picking it up. Now, this is also a game that I played on stream, so if you want to see me play it live a little bit more, I'll be linking that down below in the description of the video. And on the way out, don't forget that if you did like the content, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, and click on that notification bell. And as usual, I hope I'll see you in my next video.